So in front of me, I've got a couple of phones, and the main focal point of today's video is going to be the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE. Now, why I want to talk about this phone is because this is a cheaper version of a more expensive phone, and we've seen a lot of these from Samsung, and this is the first time I'm experiencing it. I always usually go with the S lineup, so I'm getting kind of the premium experience, but this is my first time with a I don't want to even call this mid-range because it's more expensive than mid-range, but a watered-down version of a flagship product. So, there's a few key changes here that make it cheaper. It's got a plastic back instead of a glass back. It's got a flat display instead of a curved display. The display is not a 1440p resolution. It's locked in at 1080p. So there's a few changes that make this a little bit of a there's compromises made, but you also save $300 off the price tag. So that becomes a very interesting question. So what I did was I decided to buy this phone just to try it out and see where it lands. I haven't bought a Samsung phone all year, and I'll be honest with you guys, when I first got this phone in my hand, I was surprised at how good it felt, especially the back. This is a plastic, but because of glasses, this year the glass trend was kind of to have matte glass finishes on the back, and I've just kind of gotten used to this finish. If I compare it to just my OnePlus 8 Pro and this, the finish on the back feels pretty similar, so it was kind of just not that big of a changeover for me comparatively, and I didn't find it to be cheap or tacky feeling in any way. So with that being covered, let's move on to the display where I have the biggest issue. This is a 6.4 inch display, if I recall correctly, and it's got the similar punch hole style camera cutout on the top. Now, the issue I have here is that it's actually got, let me explain this to you. When we look at it on paper, $300 is a massive jump between the S20 FE and the S20, and the only thing that you're losing is a glass back, you're losing the curved display, and the camera, the telephoto camera becomes a little bit less, the megapixel count on that drops a little bit. So for those compromises, you save $300. So you start to think, why would anybody even buy the S20? And that's exactly what I thought until I got this phone in my hand, and I realized that Samsung probably realized this too, because what they did was they made this phone worse on purpose, and the focal point of it is this punch hole camera that has a silver ring around it, right? Now, I'm not trying to complain unnecessarily, but this is something that I have not been able to get over in the last couple of days that I've been using it. This absolutely looks horrid. This is horrible. Like, you cannot get away from it. It's so distracting, and it makes absolutely no sense to me. I have never seen anybody do this on a front camera. So I've got the OnePlus 8 here. Let me turn the screen off so you guys can see. See, look at that. You can barely tell at that. Let me compare it with this, where you can see that silver ring. It's subtle, but when you put it beside something that doesn't have it, you start to realize it's there. Now, also, let's look at the $350 Pixel 4a. Look at that. Look at the difference between the two, right? That silver ring is just, it's so much more noticeable. Now, the camera with the lighting I have is making it look a little bit worse. I can see that on the display, but you have to trust me. In person, these look, this just looks so much worse, and the others are so much more subtle. So here's the S10. Look at the comparison on that. You can barely tell that the camera is there on the S10 unless you look at it at an angled light. If you look at it head on, it almost disappears into the camera, whereas this, it just doesn't. Like, that camera, it's a completely different color compared to the display. Even the OnePlus Nord, let me pull up, even though it has a bigger camera notch, it doesn't feel as noticeable as this, because this finish is making it so much worse. And the reality here is that this was done very clearly, I feel like, on purpose. Now, Samsung will never admit this, but here's what I think happened. The S20 FE comes out. I have no idea why they did it the way they did, but now this phone is competing with their S20, which is very similar to this, but this is way more aggressively priced. Now, what do, right? If people see this next to the S20, who's going to buy it, right? And the one way they could think of to make it worse was not through, degrading the performance or making something physically worse. What they did was instead added the stupid camera thing that would make it feel cheaper, that will make it feel like it's a less premium experience, and that would, they were hoping, differentiate it and make the S20 buyers or the S20 potential customers take that a little bit more seriously. Now, I don't like this trend, right? Like, smartphones, I understand when you make a lower price smartphone, you have to cut corners. And if something like that is, if you make something like that and the corner being cut results in a lesser experience, but it saves money, it makes sense. So the OnePlus Nord has a plastic back similar to this, but it does so and it saves money. So it makes sense, right? That you save money and that's why you do it, but in overall experience, it doesn't hinder you in any way. Now, that's kind of the trend with most of these cuts, right? They do impact it, but it doesn't, like, it's something that's a little bit more acceptable in line. Like, what happens is you can understand why they did it, and it's not something that's intentional, it's just something that happens and something that works out in a way where, since you are using some lower capacity products or materials, things do end up looking a little bit different. Now, if it happens more naturally, it makes sense, but with the S20 FE, this is just kind of a showcase of how Samsung is purposefully trying to make you not like this phone, and it makes no sense. Why shoot yourself in the foot, right? You've got a winner on your hands here with this phone, but you do this and you just make things so much worse, and in my opinion, that's crazy. And the weirdest part is, right, this has one of the smallest camera cutouts of all of these phones I have on my table right here. I've got the $900 OnePlus 8 Pro. This has a bigger camera cutout. The 4A has a bigger camera cutout. The S10 I have, much bigger camera cutout, but they're not as noticeable as the S10 is, S20 FE is, because of that stupid silver ring. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and if you have an S20 FE, let me know what you guys think of this. Have you noticed it? Has it bothered you? Is this your first phone with that camera cutout like this, or have you used phones with camera cutouts in the past and this doesn't really what is your experience? I definitely want to hear what other people are thinking about this down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and if you haven't already, be sure to follow me on social media. I'll have all the handles right here. I'm still testing this phone, I'm still using it. There's going to be a full review out on this very soon where I go into it a lot more in depth, so if you want to stay tuned for that. Again, be sure to subscribe to the channel and follow all the social media handles here for behind the scenes testing. That's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.